Lovely. Thanks, everyone. It's lovely to see where everyone's joining us from. All right, we'll get started. And I believe our panelists are also available to join on camera soon. Okay, perfect. Lovely. Nice to see your faces again. So hi, everyone. Thank you again so much for joining us. Welcome to Promoting Your Event, our first webinar for organizers this year. My name is Fernanda Sierra Suarez. I am the Community Engagement and Programs Manager at Culture Days National, and I use she, her pronouns. So today I am speaking to you from the Culture Days National Office, which is located on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the traditional territory of many peoples and nations, including the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Chippewa, the Wendat peoples. So the city, now known as Toronto, remains the home and meeting place for many Indigenous people whose presence, cultures continue to shape and influence our communities. Today, specifically, I'm very thankful for the rain this morning that brought water, much needed water to the plants and animals around us. And we are very, very grateful to be hosted on this land. Joining us today from the National Culture Days team is also Samuel Bernier-Comier, the Research and Registration Manager. Also, Christy Carrier, Communications Coordinator, sitting right behind me, and who is lovely running the Q&A in the chat. And of course, our very special guest today, communications expert and content strategist, Mercedes Blackwood. Lovely. So just to give you an idea of what the session will look like today. So we'll start with Mercedes as she provides some key pointers of how to step up your promotion, marketing, communication game. Later on, we will give an overview of registration system and the Culture Days dashboard led by Sam. And lastly, we will guide you through some of the different resources available on the website, including our downloadable marketing materials, and we'll demo how to download them, how to create a post. And we'll close with a Q&A. So feel free to use the chat to let us know who you are, where you're tuning in from. And since only the presenters' microphones will be on, please make sure to type in your questions into the Q&A box so we don't miss them. And we'll be reading them as many as we can towards the end of the session. And one more time, the session will also be recorded and will be available in the coming week with captions in English and in French, if you wish to review it and share it with your colleagues in your network. And thank you so much for folks from BC Culture Days, Ontario Culture Days, Saskatchewan Culture Days, Manitoba joining us today as well. I see in the chat. And just as a reminder, this webinar is part of resources that we offer year-round and in preparation for the Cross Canada Culture Day celebrations in the fall. As most of you know, Culture Days is a national celebration of arts and culture, this year running from September 23rd to October 16th, 2022. And over this 3-week run, organizers, volunteers, artists, creators, and community members from all over Canada showcase the important role that arts and culture play in strengthening communities. So to get things started, I'll invite Mercedes to join us and I'll introduce her. Lovely. So Mercedes Blackwood has over 10 years of career experience in media with Canada's largest media networks, Bell Media and Rogers Television. Her experience spans public and media relations and content marketing strategy, as well as content creation. As a consultant and writer, she leads content strategy for nonprofit and corporate clients using a unique mix of tools on how to find, build, and nurture relationships. Welcome, Mercedes. Super excited that you were able to join us today and cannot wait to hear all your tips.
Thank you so much, Fernanda, and thanks everybody for having me. Whenever I listen to my intro, I'm like, oh, that lady sounds so interesting. So thank you very much for the beautiful intro. I'm always thrilled to be here with you. I love talking with Culture Days, and I love everybody that's involved. It's such a beautiful community. And so I'm really excited to talk to you today about, just how are we going to promote this event, right? You may be either in the stage where you have already registered, perhaps you have already planned your event, or maybe you're just getting started. Maybe maybe you are just looking at what you might do, how many events you might register, maybe you're just getting your feet wet. And either way, there is something today for everyone, just like Culture Days. And what we'll mainly be focusing on is how can you effectively promote your Culture Days event, but not just generally, really in the context of what we are dealing with here. And a lot of times it's small teams, right? Just a little bit of time and just a little bit of money. And so you might be thinking this seems very, very daunting. How are we going to promote our event while also doing all of the other things that I have to do, especially when it's a really tiny team? Well, here's the really good news that I have to tell you, and that is it's absolutely possible. And there's ways of making it really efficient so that we can be effective in terms of having all sorts of people know that yours is an event that they definitely do not want to miss. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so before we start anything, right, this is a really, really crucial first step. I'm going to mom you right now and say this is a step that I don't want you to skip. I also want to say just ahead of time, so there are some resources that will be referred to that I'll talk about that will expand sometimes on what I'm going to say. Of course, you have the opportunity to ask lots and lots of questions. So I don't want you to worry about having to record or write down everything that I'm saying. You'll have an opportunity to watch this again if you need to. You'll have the content of the slides. You know, there will be some resources afterwards. So just focus on maybe your own situation and what you want to get out of it. And what questions you might have so that we can really have a nice back and forth. And I want you to leave here feeling really empowered that you can do this, okay? So before we start anything at all, I want you just to imagine an empty room, and that's you and your team in that room. And in that room, you're simply deciding your very first step, your foundation of what we're about to do here. So a lot of times what will happen is we get really excited, right? We know we have to promote something. We're running a campaign. We need to plan something. So we run straight to the idea. We go straight to the idea. We start planning, okay, what words will we use? What colors should we put on the content? Who should we get to write our newsletter? And all of that is important and all of that needs to be done. But I implore you, before you start doing anything at all, before you put pen to paper, before you write a single thing down, you've got to find your why. You need to know what is that crucial piece, what is that carrot, that nugget that will tell people this is unmissable, right? And what I'll say is in this room, so there's you and your team, and now I want you to invite a few other people in there. And who else are you inviting? Well, you're inviting your audiences that you already know about. So these are people who already participate in your programming. Perhaps they are stakeholders. Maybe it's your board. There's a lot of different people that are invested or interested in what it is you are doing. So I want you to invite those people virtually into the room in the sense that I want you to consider them. What are they looking for? What do they need? What do you need to fulfill? And then I want you to look at people like the general public. So for instance, do you have feedback from other events? Did you participate last year? What kind of notes do you get through customer service back every day through your general email, responses to your newsletter, response to the social media content that you put out? And I want you to consider those things because what you're looking for is not what would compel you to go to your event, right? In that sense, we are preaching to the choir, as they say, but I want you to find what does that person see in your event that is special enough that compels them to stop, right? We are inundated with so much messaging today. We are constantly scrolling. We get so many emails. I myself am subscribed to a countless number of newsletters. And so, it takes a lot for me to stop. And so you really need to hone in and find that nugget. Right? So start off the conversation just talking about yourselves. I want you to be open and honest and transparent. This room has a whiteboard in it. There's some stickies on the wall. There's lots of stuff for you to use. Don't be afraid to throw out different ideas and to really hone in again, as I said, on what is that magic thing about what you're about to offer that someone can really get into, right? What's the feeling that you want to leave people with when they come away from an interaction with you, right? There may be something that you maintain currently, or is this something new that you're looking for? Start to think about it and put yourself into those people's shoes as to how you want to walk away. And then I want you to end that conversation being able to express what do you offer in just 2 sentences, right? Just very, very quickly, could you tell somebody exactly what you're doing within a couple of minutes. So that you may have heard that referred to as an elevator pitch. You know, it sort of comes from the world of television, where the idea was that if you were a television writer or creator, you just come up with the idea for a brand new show. Maybe it's Abbott Elementary, I don't know, a really great new show. And you say, how am I going to get these people to make this show? And let's, you know, the hypothetical scenario is you get into the elevator and in walks a television exec, and you just have the ride up to the top to tell this person why they need to make this pilot, right? And so it's the very same thing with your audiences. Really, very quickly in this very noisy, very busy world, we need to be able to tell people very quickly why this is a compelling event and why they want to be there. Okay, so I want you to start here. All right, let's keep going. So once we've looked at the why, of course, we need to figure out the who. Who are we talking to? And a lot of times that may seem very, very obvious, right? Again, you probably have some audiences that are already intact, right? You already have, as I said, people who are coming to your programs, people who are engaged with your content. And so they are your audiences. But you also have other audiences. Maybe it's the general public. It can change from time to time, depending on what you're doing. Maybe if, for instance, you do programming for a municipality, the audience changes, right? Every time you do something. Sometimes it's the business community, sometimes it's families, sometimes it's, again, a more general public, or maybe it's youth in particular. So those audiences can change, and I want you to consider all of them. And then very specifically, I want you to consider the audience for this event. So just within the context of this event, who are we talking to? So let's get back for just a second, right? So we know that as part of Culture Days, you're part of this beautiful umbrella, right? We are collectively creating something that is happening all across the country, and we have the benefit of, you know, floating on top of this national marketing campaign, right? So you have the benefit of some recognition, you have the benefit of, you know, literally millions of people over the years who have participated in some way with Culture Days, and so maybe they still subscribe to the newsletter, maybe they make it an annual thing that they attend. So these are the people that, you know, we already know about, but every single year there's an opportunity to pull in new fans, right? Every time you participate, there's an opportunity to do this with your audience and do this with the people that you're able to influence. And so if I am a fan of you, if I'm a fan of your product, if I'm a fan of your events, if I'm a fan of your programming, it is likely because you influence my behavior in a way that helps me to achieve my aspirational self, right? So in the context of Culture Days, am I a person who's like, man, I just want to be the kind of person who just takes in more art? Or there isn't a lot that I got in school, but I feel like I have something to express and I just want to get into it. What is the aspiration of the person who might be interested in what you do? And I challenge you to come up with things that are both practical, such as, I need some things to do in the fall, all the way to the aspirational, such as I said, I feel I have art within me that needs to come out, and I have not had the opportunity to express myself, but here is this opportunity for me to get into it again, or to get into it for the first time, but really focus on that group. The other thing that I always like to say is to step back a little bit from those traditional demographics. Okay, so we are not really as concerned, and I think that's pretty clear these days. It is less and less and less important the exact age of a person who might be in your audience, their gender, what they do for work, whether or not they have a family. Those things aren't necessarily important, because if, let's use crochet as an example, I'm a person who's into crochet. I could be 7 years old or I could be 75 years old. The truth is that nugget is actually the same for the both of us. And we'll talk about this later, but the only difference is how you might tell me about this nugget, right? If I'm 7 years old, I'm going to receive that message very differently than if I am in fact 75. And so that's the part where your creativity about catering to each audience comes in. But generally you can step back from things like that and just figure out what is the thing that that person would love about what it is that we are offering. And that's your audience. Okay, so look at some of these questions that I have listed here. And again, you're just sort of peeling an onion, right? What are you here to do? What do you exist to do? What is the experience that you are trying to give this audience, right? What is it you want them to take away from this? And if you can hone in on those things, and what you've suddenly got is a picture of a person who would be interested. And now suddenly this plan, this campaign is starting to form itself, right? We know what we're talking about. We know what is that compelling nugget that we're going to use to get people to come. And now we know who we're talking to. So these are two key things that we want to do before embarking on anything else. All right, let's keep going. So now we're at the point where we can actually start planning our campaign on a budget, right? I know how things are, right? We're just going to be totally open. This is a safe space. And the truth is we don't have huge teams, right? I'm pretty positive that none of you is from an organization or a team that has the money and the resources of, say, a large national or international brand. But the great news is that somebody local, a municipality, a small art shop or collective or community can do just as compelling a campaign as somebody with a whole lot of money. And the way to do that is to really make the most efficient use of every single avenue that you have developed to contact and communicate back and forth with people, right? So in general, you may already be engaged in content marketing, right? You may already be engaged in a sense of using your various avenues to communicate with your audiences, to have like a two-way relationship, a two-way conversation with them. And what that does is that builds trust, it builds loyalty, it builds awareness in your brand so that when it is time to do the thing, I think of you, right? I think of you. Maybe I was doing a lot of research, right? This is Canada. We do tons and tons and tons of internet research before we actually buy something. And so I've done all of this research and I got a lot of it from sort of a particular source. It so happened to be a place that offers the thing that I'm looking for. And since they seem to be so knowledgeable and provided so much useful information for me, I'm probably going to call them first when it's time to do it. And that's what we're doing in the course of this campaign in terms of leading people down that path to your Culture Days event in September, October. They actually show up. Okay. All right. Let's get into it. So the first thing that we want to talk about, so we're going to get into some of the more fun stuff, but first we still have a couple more nuts and bolts to get into. And the first one is to be, again, I'm always saying this, right? Be very honest, be very transparent about your current capacity, right? This isn't necessarily the time to decide that you're going to take on a new platform, you're going to take on a new avenue. Take a look. How many people do you realistically have to do this work, to monitor this work, to tweak things, and to adjust? You need to be very, very honest about that. If it's one person, let's call this person Sally. Sally can't do 17 things well, right? You can probably do 5 things well, right? And the whole point of this is to do something both well and consistently. If you're able to do those 2 things, you're looking great, right? So I want you to be really honest about the amount of people, physical people, and the amount of physical time that you have to produce content and to maintain various channels, okay? So take a look at what you've already got going. What's working really well? What's not working so well? What did you want to get into? And do you have time to develop that? Just take a look at those things before you start. And then the second most important thing, of course, here is the process of actually doing that. How does it go from being on a piece of paper or on that whiteboard in the room to actually being published and put out in front of the public, right? And that is our process, right? So we've got to figure out what is the process of this. You might be thinking, Mercedes, like, we're just promoting the event. We just want to get to it. I promise you that you can use the time from right now all the way until September to start building those relationships, to start building excitement about what it is that you have to offer. And you can start now. And if you plan it now, then when you get to that time and it's time to scramble in terms of the event itself, this stuff is good to go. It's been flowing smoothly. People are already well informed. Everybody's ready to go. And it has just, again, floated people right through to you at the end of that road, right? So you want to nail down, what are you creating, right? And that relates back to your channel. So if you know what channels you're already using, it starts to give you some insight into what kinds of content are we going to produce to do this campaign. You want to figure out who is going to make this, right? Again, ideas are abundant, but we need to figure out who can actually execute this. And then once we've done that, when and where does each piece run, right? How are we going to schedule it? When do we think we want this to go? And the other reason this helps you is because it helps you to follow a customer buying journey. So again, this is some jargon that often goes in with marketing, but in a practical sense, anyone who's making a decision to participate in or purchase something, they're on a journey. They're on a journey from the time when they learn about the thing to the time when they decide, I'm going to buy the thing, or I'm going to go to the thing. It's a long road there, and we need assurances all along the way in order to hold on to making that decision, right? All right, let's keep going. So once we have looked at, our channels and our process, we're confident about what we can consistently do well. Now it's time to actually talk about the content itself, the fun part, the creative part. This is a good place to remind you that Culture Days has provided a large amount of really, really wonderful marketing material that you can use, right? Different elements that you can incorporate into your own designs, things that you can take whole and just put in your information and put out. It depends on whatever level of scale or time that you have, there is something that you can use. And so I really encourage you, go over there, go and check out those resources and see what you can put aside so that you can use those things to your benefit. So just before you start creating, I want you to, again, just stop one more second. I know I keep asking you to stop, but I promise you it's all very useful. So stop for a second, because instead of saying to poor Sally, we have decided there are 75 new pieces of information and content that you're going to have to create. Sally, but before she starts to cry, she's going to go and look at what is already there. Okay, so take a look. If you are already active, you're using your website, you're using social media, you're sending out emails, you're producing a newsletter, you're producing a podcast, whatever it is that you're doing, you're already communicating. So have you already created things that could be used for this campaign? Do you have photography? Do you have video? Do you have infographics that you made? And then, of course, when I talk about inventory, I'm also talking about figuring out how you can reuse and recycle. How can you repurpose the content that you already had? Because again, we're talking about capacity, right? We're talking about low capacity. We don't have that much time, but we want to run a robust campaign. So a good part of that is to say, look, we've got some things that we can repurpose. We can frankly use again, right? Is there a blog post, for instance, that had 4 points that you can now turn into an infographic or into a video? Is somebody comfortable on camera? They can just say, here's 4 ways to enrich your life with the arts. And it's bump, 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 bump. And there's, graphics going over here. All of a sudden we've got a really great video, right? That we can use in various platforms. So I really encourage you to take a look at what you've already got and see if that can't be incorporated. All right. So now that we're looking at creating the actual content, there are so many really wonderful free and low cost tools and platforms that can help you, because you might be here because you're thinking, girl, I don't have any of these skills. I don't know how to make a banner for Instagram. I don't know how do you record a video? How do you make sure it runs properly, right? You might be thinking our capacity is limited, our skills are limited, our resources are limited. The good news is every day, there are new programs that help us to overcome those shortcomings. So things like, for instance, Canva is one of my personal favorites. I should probably reach out to them for some kind of sponsorship, because honestly, I just keep telling people to use Canva, but it is free. And the free level, the reason I like Canva is the free level is, me too, I told you I love it, Amanda, I love it. The free level allows for quite a bit. right? So before you even get to the point where you think, okay, maybe I should look at a pro membership, I would like to have a little bit more creativity here, I'd like to have a bit more capacity on this. The free level is beautiful. It's quite fine. So it really would allow you to upload elements from Culture Days and incorporate them into designs that you have. Platforms like Hootsuite still maintains a free level. It doesn't offer that much in terms of back-end help. But again, if we're coming in from the ground here and you have no other way of scheduling your content or keeping track of the content you have, I just highly recommend give it a try and use these tools to help you overcome, as I said, any skill sets that you don't think you can have. Something like Canva even does things like shapes things for you. You know, it's the right justification, it's the right dimensions for whatever platform it is that you're going towards. And so it's just fantastic. It's fantastic. So take some time to look at some of those tools and you see how we talked about the process. So those tools are going to be incorporated into your process. And again, make things a little bit easier for you. Make it easier for you to create multiple pieces of original content without spending hours and hours and hours that you frankly don't have, right? I've put ask for help. I've made it deliberately vague. Why? Because help can come in so many forms. Help can go on back to those top points of inventory and reuse and recycle, as in asking your partners, your friends, are there other groups that do similar work? Are you a collective? Put your stuff together, work together. Are there things that you can post on each other's platforms? Can you tag each other? Can you repost? Is there a video that we can share? Can we make something together? Maybe we can put our budget together. Maybe we can, I know a videographer with a wonderful, really great fee that we can afford. Why don't we do it together? And then we both have footage that we can use for this campaign. There are so many wonderful ways to do that. If we're talking about things like blogs, so maybe you have decided that as part of your campaign, you're going to create 5 blogs that get people like prepared, right? About the event, or reveal 5 really cool things about the thing that you're doing. You can say to somebody who's an expert in that field, maybe somebody who's either part of your organization or has worked with your organization in the past, and you can say, would you write those for us? We will give you plenty of time. We'll provide the editorial help, like we'll edit it, we'll post it, we'll do all of that. We would just love to have your insight. And you've just created a way for somebody else to make some of the content for you, right? So anytime that you have the opportunity to do that, do it, and definitely look at how you can repurpose things. A quick note, always tweak content and concepts for specific platforms. That relates back to your audience, right? So your audience, where are they? Where do they hang out? Is it Instagram? Is it Facebook? Is it split, which is the case for a lot of us, right? Maybe your younger folks are on certain platforms and your older folks, this is where the only time where age might come into it, right? Your older folks or people who are more rural may be on a different platform. And so it is absolutely worth tweaking it so that it displays properly and beautifully, because we don't want any barriers. We're lowering barriers for people to understand who we are and what it is we have to offer. And something just as simple as like that didn't display properly can throw somebody off needlessly, right? Okay. And then of course, plan and schedule said campaign, which I told you. So I'm not going to go a full mom on you, but it absolutely helps to plan. And does that, your question might be, does that leave room for spontaneous responses? Does that leave room for us to just like quickly get on top of things? 100%. Go ahead and go in and schedule some of those key pieces or those key, things like deadlines, things like registration. Schedule those things in because those things do not change. Schedule those so that you have, again, more time day to day to post fun things that are in response to like, National Donut Day or something, and you happen to be teaching donut making or baking in your event, right? So definitely take advantage of those things, but give yourself a break by scheduling and planning for these things so that, again, you're not sort of just always going by the seat of your pants every day. Okay, all right, let's keep going. So now that we've talked about your why, so we have our nugget, We have our thing that's going to compel people to come. We are incorporating all of the beautiful artwork that has been created by Culture Days. We're incorporating that into original content. We're repurposing things. We have our, we have a bit of a schedule in terms of maybe it's a content calendar, maybe it's a editorial calendar. So we have a general idea of when things are going to go. Now it's time to really seal that connection, right? It's time to add that human element. That is the difference between something sounding like an ad or sounding like something you can just pass by blindly and something that compels you to engage. And the way that it's going to compel you to engage is by connecting with people. Right? So you want to incorporate the key messages. And when I say key messages, I mean those overarching ones that are given by Culture Days, right? So, part of, enriching life, life filled with art and culture, right? Participatory feelings of, get involved, roll up your sleeves. These are the overarching messages of Culture Days, and those will continue to float for the national campaign, right? So we are constantly making sure that these messages are coming out over social media and through the newsletter and all of the other wonderful ways that they communicate. So you have that to bank on, but you want to stand out, right? Because during the time of Culture Days, it's wonderful if I, Joe Public, know that Culture Days is happening, but why do I want to go to your event in Milton? I need to know why yours is the event that I want to go to. And that is by adding your own unique flavor. So you have your own voice, right? Your organization has a tone of voice. It has a way that it speaks. It has a way that it communicates. And so you will take those key messages and display them in a way that makes sense in your voice. You say it in the way that you would say it, right? When we are crafting our messages and the way that we say things, always, I'm always saying, there's the aspirational and there is the practical. And anticipating people's questions and concerns is an important part of compelling them to participate, right? Because again, we are taking down each one of those barriers that stop somebody or gives them pause as to why they might want to actually go forward and participate, right? So I need to know, for instance, maybe what's your masking policy? Is your building accessible? If I don't have a certain amount of technical access, can I still participate? We need to still answer these questions and make people feel comfortable and calm that they're making the right decision because they had all of the information that they needed to make that choice. And rolled into that is planning for every scenario. And I just mean simple things like if you have an outdoor event, we're Canadians, what are we going to do if it rains? Are you ready for that? What if it's super chilly? What if it snows? Okay, so you need to tell people either no problem, it's a covered event. It doesn't matter if it rains, we're good to go. Or yes, we have booked a secondary rain date so that in case things go wonky with the weather, we're still good to go on another day. Let people know, give them every piece of information they might need. And also your customer service or anyone who's managing your social media community, they will thank you because so many questions these days comes through social media, right? People will respond to a newsletter, people will respond to a post on Instagram and ask, what do I need to bring? What happens if it rains? Thunderstorms are forecast. Should I still come? We're very good at being like, forget it, especially when we haven't necessarily put in a financial skin in the game, right? So if something is free or very low cost, it's that much easier for someone to say, forget it. So make sure that you're giving them all the information that they need to know, no, you should definitely still come. And then I talk this to death, and it is to prioritize clarity, right? Always remember that whoever you're reaching out to, whoever you're trying to communicate with is quite possibly, English is their second language. It could be their fifth language, yes? There could be challenges involved in their ability to understand information, and depending on how it's being displayed. Constantly think of these things. How can we say this in the simplest, clearest, cleanest way possible, it's almost always the way to go. And I say this because even myself, and it relates to that last point about maintaining your personality, sometimes I'll start writing something and all of a sudden I sound like Shakespeare, okay? And it's too formal and I'm indubitably and using words that they're beautiful words, but honestly, someone's going to read it and go, what? What did she say? So sometimes read it to somebody else, okay? Somebody outside of your organization, somebody younger, a child, a senior. Do they understand what you're saying? Do they understand what you're referring to? If they do, good on you. If they're like, no, I'm confused, just tweak it, just tweak it. How would you just say it to a friend, right? And that's often the right answer in terms of how you should say something. Talk like a real person. That relates to that, okay? Not too formal, not too much, and go up from there. All right, so let's go. We're almost to the end. I included this to relate to what I just said. So there's this great account on Twitter that I follow myself, and it's called Just Copy Tips. And they literally just do stuff like this. And it's just a good reminder from time to time, no matter if you're just starting out writing content or you're a seasoned professional, it never hurts to be reminded that sometimes simpler is better, to the point is better. I'm not suggesting you should be a high paid, highly awarded copywriter in order to be compelling. You do not have to be. But what I'm showing you is that oftentimes if you just get to the point and say things in the simplest way possible, it's often the most compelling. All right. And so just to recap, find your why, okay? Find that nugget. What is the thing that makes your event unique and stand out even within the beautiful mosaic of Culture Days? What is it about your event that is a no miss? Find your audience. Who are you talking to? This is so important to your ability to be able to throw that message and have it land where you want it to go, is to know who you're talking to and why you're talking to them, right? Take a minute, step back, determine your channels and your process. It is so necessary and will help you so much down the road when it is time to actually execute this plan. And then lastly, those three things are going to allow you to plan and create your content with intention, always thinking of who we're talking to and why, and what it is that we need to convey so that they come and enjoy and become that loyal person who comes back year after year after year to your event. All right, so I hope that helped. I think that's a wrap there. I know we'll have question time, so we'll talk more about some of the things I just talked about and expand on anything that you want to. All right.
Thank you so much, Mercedes, for all those super clear and super applicable tips. And yes, we'll have time for Q&A at the end. We're running a tiny bit long, so we hope that we'll be able to get through Q&As towards the end, but feel free to always contact us as well for any questions. And I'll invite Sam now to join us so he can go over registration and the dashboard.
Okay, hi everyone. So I'm just going to give you a quick little tour of the organizer dashboard, which you'll all have access to after you create an account on the Culture Days website. This, of course, is where you'll be able to register your events and your hubs for Culture Days, but there's a lot of other fun and useful tools in there available to you that you might not know about. So the first thing I'd like to point you to is at the top of the page here, and this is especially useful if it's your first time organizing a Culture Days event, or if you just need a little reminder. We have two step-by-step guides, one for events and one for hubs. If you just simply click on the hyperlinks here in the body of text, they'll download them for you. And they just give you a bit of an overview of what to expect in the registration form and little tips as you register your events and hubs. So if we scroll down, you'll see down here we have a number of different buttons in the dashboard. Most prominent, of course, are events and hubs. This is where you'll be registering your events for Culture Days. You can create new events in here, or you can import information from events from 2021 if you participated last year. So this is useful if you're putting together a very similar event and you don't want to have to retype everything. So from here, you'll be able to create your events, see all the events you've already created, edit them. Once one of your events is published, you can always edit it at any time in this space in the website. And the same thing, if we go back, the same thing goes for hubs. It's a very similar process. You'll see all of your hubs here, and you can edit them at any point. So I'm not going to spend too much time going through the registration process because we don't really have time for that today. But what I wanted to especially point you to are a few other tools that are available in here. So to make registration a bit easier, we've also added 2 features called venues and organizer profiles. So this should save you time if you're organizing multiple events that will have some of the same details. So for example, if you have 3 events happening in the same location, you can create a venue and save those location details and then import them into every event that you create. Same thing for your organizer details. You can create a profile to easily import information into the registration form when you're registering your events. These are 2 new features from last year that are really useful if you've missed them. Now, if we go into the resource tab, this is where a lot of the useful things will be in terms of promoting your event. So in your resources, you get access to a little bit of extra material compared to our public page, where you'll find the general poster for this year and things like that. But here, if you download our full poster package, for example, you'll get our ready-to-print poster for our annual campaign, but also different customizable versions of it in different formats. So I know Fernanda is going to go through that a little bit in a bit more details, but I just want to show you where you can find all this stuff. So we have our poster package. You can also even download the working files if you are using InDesign. And we also have all of our social media assets packaged that you can download from here. And we have a few more things that will be coming throughout the summer. So we always try to update this with the newest material. So keep checking. We also have templates for swag if you're thinking of making t-shirts or buttons or tote bags or anything like that. We have some templates available for you to download, as well as a number of useful documents for when you're running your events. So photo release forms, tracking sheets, etc. So all of this material lives in your dashboard under the resource tab. It's always a good one to return to when you're starting to think about promoting your event. One last feature I wanted to touch on are collections, which is the last button here that I haven't mentioned yet. So collections are basically a fun way for you to group events together and create stories and tell stories by putting different events together from our listing. So these aren't groupings that are published on the public event listing. They're just groups of events that you can create for yourself or to share with others. So there's no limit to how many events are in a collection. There's no limits to how many collections a particular event is put into. You can really just mix and match and create fun things. It can be a scheduling tool. It can be a promotion tool. It can be a lot of fun things. So I wanted to quickly show you how that works. So I've created one here, Sam's collection. If we click on edit, you can see that you can choose a name, you can choose the author, and if you want to, you can also give the collection a quick description. And once you've created one, you click save, it's saved. Anytime you're browsing our event listing and you see something that catches your eye, or these can be kind of living collections that you keep adding to as you browse the event listing. So if you see something that really interests you or that you think matches one of the collections you've created, once you're on the event page, all you have to do is click on the share button in the top right. and you can click on add to collection. You select the collection you want to add it to. You click save. If we just add a few random events here. And let's go for a third one. So once you've added events to the collection, if you go back to your dashboard, you'll see that there's now 3 events in SAM's collection. So let's see what it looks like. So this is what a collection page looks like. It gives you a map with all the events that you've added to it and a list of the events with clickable links to the event pages. And this is basically a unique shareable URL that you can share with others. But if you click on the share button here, you can directly share this collection on social media sites or copy the link, or even save it as a QR code if you wanted to print it onto a poster or anything like that. So there you go. That's kind of a quick overview of that feature. Again, if you ever have any questions regarding registration or the dashboard, you can contact us at info@culturedays.ca, and we'll be happy to help. I know this was just kind of a brief overview of what's available, but I'm gonna let Fernanda get into more details now, into the actual material.
Thanks so much, Sam. That was great. And yes, if you do have specific questions about registration, the dashboard, or any technical details, at the end, we'll share Sam's direct email, which you can email as well. So I'll go now through the resources page and the different type of content you can access through there. Just gonna share my screen. All right. So the resources page, you can find it here at the top. It's the second tab, right? And in here, the resources page offers free resources to support event community organizers in your planning, evaluation, and promotion of events. You can access all of these content year-round and for free. And I really invite you to spend some time with this page and at your own pace explore each resource, because there is quite a bit of material for each. So today what I'll do, thank you for everyone that submitted a survey questionnaire response of which resources you'd like us to cover today. So I will touch on those. But again, at any point, if you have any questions about specific resources, feel free to let us know. So to start us off, so when it comes to marketing campaign resources, you can access those through the logo and brand assets as well as annual campaign. But like Sam just mentioned, what's available in here is just a portion, which is what is available for folks and the public in general. But for customizable items, you can access all of those through your dashboard, and we'll go over those. So logo and brand assets, it's a useful resource to have. You can access our brand guidelines, our Metropolis font, which I'll demonstrate you how to download, and as well as our different logos. So the brand guidelines, you can reference those in order to create your own versions of the poster. And if you have any questions about or specific use, or if you require specific shapes or assets, we can work with you and help you with that. So here we go back. Annual campaign, in here you will find items related to our annual campaign that you can print off or feature in different online promotions. All these items here are standard and non-customizable, so that's why we call them ready to print posters. Here's the version in English and the version in French. And all of these are in PDF files, and you can access them just by clicking and they will download. Digital ads will be available in the coming weeks, and they'll also appear over here. You can also access our most recent press releases in this page. Okay, let's go back to resources. All right, so a great resource to have in mind as you're getting ready for Culture Days is this one, Getting Ready for Culture Days. This resource is packed with ideas on specifically how to build creative partnerships in your communities. So for example, tips on how to reach out to municipalities, how to discuss Culture Days programming with local business improvement association, how to develop partnerships with local media, for example, community newspapers, radio stations, social media platforms with people or influencers that are in your area, things like that. Here you can also learn how by creating hubs in your community, you can build important partnerships, collaborations, find help in when it comes to finding venues, all of that. And here you can also find information on how to host a Culture Days info session, which can be useful and helpful to let your community know about Culture Days and encourage anyone who is interested in organizing an event. The Community Organizer Guide provides you with a number of actions and tips that you can take as a community organizer to get people around you involved in arts and culture during Culture Days. So this includes tips on how to mobilize community and how to maximize the national Culture Days timeline, and in order to promote your events and take advantage of all our different dates and campaigns that we run throughout the months leading up to Culture Days. The Public Relations Guide contains many useful tips and resources, a lot of them which Mercedes already mentioned, including, for example, Culture Days official key messages, which you can reference and use in your own communications. It also includes ideas on how to expand your network through Culture Days, approaches to generating awareness in your events, and it also includes guidelines on how to write media releases, story pitches, and tips how to reach out to those media stations, who you should contact, how to work with all these different partners. Another one that I'll reference because I saw a question come in regarding finding a venue. So in planning your event, there's lots of tips on how to, there are more general tips on how to plan effectively and ensure that everything runs smoothly for your event, including list of potential venues. So how to reach out to community centers, libraries, schools, cafes, how to think outside the box when it comes to venues. But if you have specific questions, you can reach on how to find a venue, you can directly reach out to us and we can support you in finding venue, connecting you with other local participants, resources, etc. But I invite you to check out this resource as well. And the last one that I'll go through is our webinar series resource. It is a great one just to have reference to, because in here you can access all of the different webinars that we've hosted throughout the years. For example, the last one we hosted back in March, we've created a written overview and tip sheet of the webinar, which you can access. And here in this particular one, I do invite you to check it out, as it includes a lot of very useful tips, accessibility considerations, do's and don'ts when it comes to social media and the use of, for example, alternative text, image descriptions, the use of emojis, all of that. All right, so we'll quickly go through my resources back in the dashboard. So as Sam mentioned, you access those resources separately from the resources page. Once you're logged into your dashboard, here at the bottom right, you're able to go to My Resources. And like Sam mentioned, here you can find marketing and promotional materials related to Culture Days, to our campaign, but that are customizable. Like I said, the Metropolis font. So our materials use a custom font called Metropolis, which you can download and install according to the program that you'll be using. For example, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, or any Adobe program like InDesign. But also, as Mercedes mentioned, one that we'll be referring to today and that is super useful to use, free to access, is called Canva. And we really recommend exploring this tool as it is super user-friendly and it allows you to upload any image directly and add text images to it directly. So I'll show you quickly here. We've uploaded now under Join the Campaign, you're able to access the Metropolis font, which once you download it, you'll see a zip file come in. And once it opens in your computer, you just need to select all this and directly copy it into the add fonts part of your design program. So where the text is usually is at the bottom. I'll show you on Canva what this looks like. So in here, upload a font. You would just select all this and click open, and then you'll find the added font in there. So you can also download the poster package now here, which includes print-ready digital Culturis 2020 posters in English and in French, and customizable materials for each of them. Let me close this tab here and open a new one. So the posters will come in a zip file as well. Once you open it, you'll be able to access English. So you'll see the campaign poster, full custom, semi-custom, and the campaign poster in digital or ready to print. Like I mentioned, ready to print is PDFs, digital PNG files, which you can directly upload into any social media platform. The same is, the case is the same with the social media package. The only difference is here, we don't have any PDFs. They are all PNGs, which you can access. So for example, once you open English, Facebook, you're able to access this, which is one of our fully customizable posters for Facebook. Available also in here are the InDesign working files of the poster, which you're able to also access. Like I said, this is only if you have access to Adobe Suite, InDesign, and would like to have more of a, if you would like to further customize your posters, but otherwise I invite you to use something like Canva that is very, very useful and user-friendly. So the way that we'll do this is, for example, once you open your graphic on a platform like Canva, you can just go to your downloaded posters here for social, and we'll use the full custom digital and just drag it directly into upload your file. Once it's uploaded, you click on it, images background, and then from here you can add anything you like. You can add text about your event, you can add a QR code, you can add a subheading, any type of content you like. And for each template, there are different ones that you can also explore. For example, here you can see Instagram versions of the same, and there are also banner size or Twitter size for all of those as well. All right, we are right at 3 o'clock, and just in the interest of time, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and invite Sam and Mercedes back just so that we can go through some of the questions that we found. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you can stay just a few more minutes to get through questions, but if you're unable to, no problem. Thanks for joining us, and we'll send all of this with the recording. This presentation will be available to you. So let's see if we have any particular questions regarding presentations. Okay. All right, so if you, sorry, I'm just going through the questions, 1 second. Okay, I don't see any specific questions for Mercedes or Sam, but if there are some, make sure to submit them here. Yes, we will be able to send a list of free software. Yeah, we can recap this presentation, for example, Canva and the different resources you can use. And something I did forget to say is that for the full posters, there are Word versions already available that you can access and work directly on them. All right. One question we have here. Colleague of mine likes to capitalize words and sometimes whole sentences in order to grab attention to social media post. What's your opinion on capitalizing in social media posts? Not sure if Mercedes, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. I guess my question to you would be, does it work? So if this colleague thinks that that works, does it, right? So check the analytics before capitalizing everything. Was it lackluster? And then they started capitalizing and everything was great, then keep going. But if it didn't make any difference, then I would just encourage you to type it as normal. But it always depends, right? So I can sit here and tell you like, no, you should just write it in a regular way. You can probably go and find an account that is killing it by using capitals. So you really never know. There's no right or wrong answer. It really is how your audience is responding to your content. So if they like it and they're responding well, keep going. If they're dropping away and they're not responding, change it up.
Yeah, we have talked about in terms of accessibility. It especially works when you're using hashtags, so that all the word is not all clumped together and folks are able to identify the different words. Particularly,
very good point. And websites too. Yeah.
Very true. All right, so last question. Yes, so this webinar will be available on our webinar series page as well. And before I do forget, because we were running a bit of time, I'm just going to pull up some of the provincial reminders that we want to go through. But if you do have any questions in the meantime, send them in and we can look through them while we're figuring all of this out. Okay. All right. Are you able to see the presentation or is it Canva presentation? Okay, perfect. So just as a reminder, before we wrap up, there's just some few things to get through again. So if you're an organizer in Ontario or BC, make sure to register your events before July 31st in order to be included in their provincial marketing and PR campaigns. If you have specific questions about that, you can visit for Ontario, ontarioculturedays.ca, or for British Columbia, BC Culture Days, our regional page on the National Culture Days website. Alberta Culture Days this year will be running from September 1st through 30th as it aligns and complements the month of the artist there. But organizers in Alberta are able to register activities through the national registration system for events that are occurring after September 23rd. So Saskatchewan, the Culture Days Hub sponsorship program is now open. It is accepting applications still, and there is no deadline, but applications are accepted on a first come, first served basis until the sponsorship budget is expected. So for any, and specifically for any applications with activities and programming that advance truth and reconciliation as part of September 30th, which is the National Day of Reconciliation, will be prioritized. And if you have any questions or you request more information or an application, please contact Shelly Fayant at here, sfayant@saskculture.ca. Folks in Manitoba, make sure to stay up to date with funding opportunities, resources, any open calls by following Culture Days Manitoba on social media channels. Another important piece from our end in terms of registration. So as I just mentioned, September 30th marks the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And starting this year, Culture Days has set aside that day to create space exclusively for events that are organized to commemorate this day, including those aimed at sharing First Nations, Métis, and/or Inuit experiences and perspectives. Those who celebrate the creative and cultural expressions of Indigenous people and communities. So in order to ensure that Indigenous voices and participation are central to any of the events planned for the day. There are additional questions for organizers when you are answering, when you're filling up your registration. So for example, if the proposed event does not appear to be properly or meaningfully reflecting the above, then we might contact you just to clarify some details. If you do have more questions about this, there is this particular portion on our FAQ page where you can reference. And of course, you can stay in touch with us by following our social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. You can also subscribe to our newsletter. If you have general inquiries, you can message us at info@culturedays.ca. But like I mentioned, any registration, dashboard, technical details, questions, you can contact Sam. For any of marketing, design questions, or anything else related to resources, you can contact me, and here you can find my email. And additional public relations and media inquiries, here is Mercedes' email for all of you. All right, I'll stop sharing my screen at the moment. Just gonna check if we have a few more questions. All right. All right, everyone. Well, I think that is it for now. But like I said, if you do have any questions as we go in the coming months, don't hesitate to message us, contact us. We'll be happy to talk to you. And don't forget that the best way to stay in the loop about Culture Days is through our newsletter. So thank you everyone for joining, and we'll be in touch, and have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you, Mercedes, and thank you, Sam.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.